Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Retro Gamers Podcast, episode number 148. Larry here.
And Anthony here.
What is going on, Ant? How are you?
I'm doing all right. You know, I had a nice week off. I did nothing with it, and here I am today.
Good man. That's what you're supposed to do with your weeks off. Just chill, relax.
Oh, no, I meant a week off from the podcast.
Oh, okay. Never mind then.
No. I worked all week.
You worked on everything, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
I did it all.
Well, the reason why you were off, which we'll talk about a little later in the episode, the Long Island Retro Gaming Expo, which goes to show that if it can go wrong, it will go wrong. And we'll talk about that a little later. But it is salvaged. You can check it out right now as we speak, or as you listen to this on our YouTube page, Retro Gamers Podcast, and of course on our podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts, including Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher now. We are on Stitcher, which everyone was talking about. Even one person who said he would not listen to the podcast unless it was on Stitcher. So, sir, there you go. Hopefully you're listening.
There we go. We deliver.
Yeah, we sure did. Took a while to figure it out, too. So we'll talk about all that a little later. But I do want to hit on, even though now it's, it seems like our topic at hand this week, it's getting rough talking about these things because reality is setting in, and so is Father Time. But still, it's the glory days, and that's what we like talking about, the glory days of gaming, with two friends of over 25 years at this point. Think about that.
Unfortunately.
Oh, how dare you, sir. So a couple weeks ago, we talked about the 30th anniversary of the Game Boy. I did not realize that at the same time, also released in 1989, was a system that was the first, in my opinion, and maybe yours, the first system to truly go head-to-head with Nintendo. And we're talking about the 30th anniversary of the Sega Genesis.
Yes, the 30th anniversary of the Sega Genesis.
Yep, the Sega Genesis. Sega.
Mm-hmm.
What are your, right off the bat, Ant, what are your thoughts about the Genesis? Just overall.
Overall, the Genesis was an amazing system. I mean, you actually finally had something on the market that was able to rival Nintendo. And not only that, they managed to beat them to the market in the in terms of the 16-bit era. Now, granted, PC Engine, TurboGrafx 16, they kind of started the ball. I was like, but Sega was really the one that really pushed the gaming industry into the 16-bit era with a phenomenal system, and a very memorable one as well, because growing up, it was did you have a Super Nintendo or did you have a Sega Genesis? There was always a constant fight of did you have either or were you one of the lucky kids who managed to have both?
Yeah, you're right. And it's funny you mentioned, kind of the first one to throw their hat into the ring was the TurboGrafx. And as much as we're seeing finally a nice resurgence of the TurboGrafx between the Mini that's coming out in March and with us, at least with me, the Polymega with its attachment. Mm-hmm. But not a lot of people had the TurboGrafx. And I'm trying to wonder, maybe we can talk about this in a future episode, why? Was it the price? Was it just what it was? Was too many people already had Nintendo? But something to think about for later. But the Genesis was the one to break that wall, to get past Nintendo and be like, hey, look, pal, we're here to stay for a good period of time. And they showed their dominance straight out of the box.
Yeah, and the cool thing about it is that you actually got to see you got a great comparison basically, because at that point everybody was basically a Nintendo gamer. You had the NES, you had these 8-bit games, and then all of a sudden here come these really awesome graphics, and they were almost arcade quality for your home. The colors were vibrant, everything was lively. Arcade games were porting over to it. So there was a lot to like about the Sega Genesis, and not only that, they had about a 2-year leg up on the Super Nintendo, which was fantastic for them, and it really helped them cement them into the marketplace, because the Master System that went up against the NES didn't do as well. So they decided to focus, at least my thought is Sega focused on how do we beat Nintendo into the market in terms of the next phase.
A good call, especially with the Master System. Again, I would put that in the category of the TurboGrafx back in the late 80s. I don't remember anyone with a Master System. I can't think of anyone with a Master System. I don't even think back then I knew the Master System existed. I was so focused on the Nintendo and, of course, no internet. So, and I don't remember seeing Master System games for sale. I'm going to go a bit local here, and we're going to step into the time machine for a moment. So, late 80s, Knapp Street, Toys R Us. So, me and Anthony, we're there. You know exactly what I'm talking about, Ant.
No, you're talking about Toys R Us on Flatbush.
Yes, Flatbush, not Knapp. You can take Knapp to get the Flatbush. So, but Flatbush, yes. The way they had it set up, which was probably maybe your Toys R Us where you lived, they would have the game section, and what it was is you took a
slip.
Yeah. And that was your purchase. You go to the thing, they scan it, and then at our Toys R Us, behind the registers, they would have this wall behind glass, right? I think it was behind like a tempered glass or something like that.
Yeah.
They had all the games. They had all the kind of like almost how this is set up. Just imagine everything's in a box, right? And had it all lined up, and then you'd show your slip and the receipt. Or they stamped the slip, and then they would give you the game.
Yep.
And I remember sometimes, like, if we go to Toys R Us and everything's getting rung up, or if my parents are online, I would just go and hang out and just stare at all the games that, like, I want all of them. But, Ant, maybe you can correct me. I don't ever remember seeing a Master System game behind that, on that wall.
I can't say I remember them being on the wall of games behind the register, but I do remember this. I do remember the gaming slips.
You do,
at the store. Yeah, no, I absolutely do. And I also had a couple of friends that had Sega Master System, so I did get the opportunity to play it when I was a kid.
Okay.
But of course, I was an NES guy, so really, I didn't find it as appealing as the NES, so that's where, my heart went. But yeah, no. I mean, it was there. You just probably never noticed it because you were too busy drooling at the wall of Nintendo games.
Well, and also you got to admit, like, Nintendo boxes had more flair to them than an old Master System box. Especially
they did. The design, the artwork was definitely not the best for Sega.
Have one on me, but in any event, so then Genesis comes around, and like you said, changes the landscape. Everyone knows, Genesis does what Nintendo don't. That was one of the most famous lines out there, and even I think they kind of redid that old commercial for the Mini that's coming out actually in a few weeks.
Oh, nice.
Right,
yes, it comes out September. Yeah.
Yes. So were you, like, did you jump right away on like, when did you get a Genesis in the lifetime of the system?
Okay. No, strangely enough, I didn't get a Genesis, I believe, until after I had a Super Nintendo. So I was late to the 16-bit party.
Okay.
And mostly because I was too busy enjoying my NES. I mean, there was no reason for me to switch over to anything else because I was having a blast playing the games I had already, and building up my library there. Because remember, the NES was creating games for years after the Super Nintendo. So there was no reason to jump. And of course, obviously, I'm a kid. It's not like I had a job and I can run out and buy a system whenever I wanted. It was whenever mommy and daddy decided to gift me something.
Very true. Very true.
So.
I was late to the game as well. I definitely got a Genesis later on. It was definitely a Genesis 2. I did not get the first gen Genesis. And
I did.
Oh, okay. All right. So you got it a little bit probably before me.
Gen.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't. Yeah, see, I'm not exactly sure when. I don't remember when, but I do remember it was the first gen.
Like, I can't pinpoint the exact time, but I do feel like I got it like around the time. I just think it's a coincidence, though. Around the time Castlevania Bloodlines came out. I gotta
say, reason to get it.
Yeah, because that's like one of the first games besides the Sonic Pac-In game. One of the first games I vividly remember playing on Genesis. Mm-hmm. So, and it definitely still had the 3 buttons. The system still had 3 buttons when I bought it.
Yes, mine did as well.
So with Genesis, you know, at the time, there were a few games just to like compare, and like you were able to compare game to game because they came out on both systems. We started seeing multiple releases of the same game. And some of them changed the landscape of both systems. Like, they actually helped each other, the Genesis and the Nintendo, Super Nintendo. For example, the one that screams at me when I think about that is Mortal Kombat.
Of course.
Because do you remember the difference between the biggest difference between the two of them in the beginning?
Oh, absolutely. The Genesis version had blood.
There you go.
And the Super Nintendo one did not. In fact, they changed the color of it to like gray, or
it was either green or they just didn't have it.
Yeah, no, I'm not exactly sure, but which was a huge difference at the time, because obviously Mortal Kombat took the arcade by storm, and the opportunity to have it in your home was just monumental. Everybody flocked to the Genesis version because, hey, it's like, we wanted blood.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which, by the way, does not endorse violence.
What? No, not at all. We had a PhD professor on this show who said that. So
yes,
there's a flashback Friday. Yeah, I think you were even still able to toggle the blood in the Genesis version. And I don't think it wasn't until Mortal Kombat 2, I think, is when we finally saw blood on the Super Nintendo. So Genesis entering the game, literally, pushing Nintendo to go a little more mature, you know what I mean, than what they're used to. On the flip side of it, when Street Fighter 2 came out for both systems, Super Nintendo, right off the bat, had the edge because there were 6 buttons already on the controller. And I don't know if you've ever played Street Fighter 2 on Genesis with a 3-button controller. It is weird.
Well, yeah, because you're missing 2 very essential buttons.
You're missing 3 essential buttons, actually.
Well, for Street Fighter originally it was a 5-button system.
Well, yeah, but like what they did was they would incorporate like low, medium, high punch and then low, medium, high kick.
Yes.
Right. And then doing it like with 3 buttons is kind of weird. So that ended up forcing Genesis to put out what became a standard 6-button controller. Which is still odd that that's not standard on the Mini, but that's besides the point. And then with that 6-button controller coming out, that basically changed the landscape of Genesis again, being able to work with, again, more Mortal Kombats, more games that would incorporate more button schemes to it and everything. So they definitely helped each other out.
I think they did, but at the end of the day, like it was probably the hottest rivalry in the history of the video game industry. Yep. I can't think of anything hotter than Genesis versus Super Nintendo.
No, there wasn't anything there. Atari really had no competition, in my opinion. I mean, it was Coleco and Intellivision and everything like that, but Atari was Atari.
They did. They had a lot of competition. There were a lot of companies that were putting out systems. It's just that Atari had the market.
That's what I meant. Like, there wasn't like I don't ever remember like a direct battle, especially because some of those systems played all the games anyway. So it was weird back then. But Nintendo and Sega went at it. And I mean, I guess it's kind of your call or everyone's individual call who may have won in the end, after moving on like to the N64 and then to the, what the hell came next? Saturn and stuff like that. Well, Sega CD. But Genesis, let's to focus on the Genesis a little bit more. Sega was very forward thinking, I guess, in my opinion as well, even though some other Atari did this already. But Genesis thought about the prior system when the power converter came out. And that allowed you to play Master System games and Master System cards on the Genesis. So Genesis is, you can almost see as the first backwards compatible system, kind of, sort of.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I can't really think of any other ones that would do that unless you count the the Atari.
I mean, Atari's like the 78 played the 52.
The 78,
and stuff like that.
the 78, no, the 7800 played the 2600 game.
Oh, 2600, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I would almost argue that would be the first backwards, but still, I think Genesis really became like just a forerunner in the backwards compatible era, because for a very long time, it wasn't until the Wii U that Nintendo became backwards compatible with anything, right?
Well, no, the Wii played Game.
The Wii played GameCube games. Okay,
but still,
so the Wii
right.
was the first. Right, the Wii was the first one that became backwards compatible, which was years later, obviously over a decade later from the Genesis and several years after the, PlayStation 2.
Yep.
So,
and
Nintendo was just late to the market on that. But, Sega, to your point, always forward thinking and always trying to figure out a way to capitalize on the existing hardware they had.
Yes.
Now, granted, I mean, a lot of people saw these things as a negative, but adding on to the system, like adding the Sega CD, adding the 32X.
The Tower of Power.
There were a lot of, the Tower of Power. There were a lot of peripherals that you can add to the system to kind of, plus it up, which was really cool because they were trying to get the most out of it. Granted, they were trying to make the most money out of it as well.
No, but true. I mean, what business doesn't? But you're right. The poor Genesis was just, it was the leeches that would have to attach to it, such as the aforementioned Power of Power, where basically it was a Gen 1 Sega CD, which was the thicker CD with the drawer, so that was about yay big, and then the G1 Genesis, you can say, right, and then the 32X. And if you want to go as far, you get Sonic and Knuckles, and then any a Sonic game on top of that. Game Genie, if you want to get.
And you had the Game Genie, and you literally had something that was like, and that's why there's that special edition Sega Mega Drive Mini that you can buy that comes with the Tower of Power.
Actually, I ordered the Tower of Power separately as well. It's coming in from Japan.
Nice.
Yes, can't wait.
Nice.
And they're like, do they work? I'm like, absolutely not, but it's still going to be cool to see.
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
So, Genesis definitely squeezed as much out of that Genesis. And speaking of add-ons, maybe, it's weird that even though you had the add-ons, like the Sega CD, which still ended up having its own power base and having its own connections to the TV almost. Like, you still had to run everything through the Genesis. It was almost kind of odd as to why. Like, I can see why the 32X. Fine, that just sits on top and that's fine. But, it's still kind of weird. I feel like the Sega CD definitely could have been its own standalone system. It almost was with the amount of wires that you had. I guess you just ran off. I guess you used the boot up or whatever of the Genesis. I mean, I don't know the technicals behind it, so don't hold me to it. But yeah, the Genesis, it definitely stood it stands the test of time. Let's talk about some of the monumental games that right off the top of you, and Sonic, don't count Sonic because everyone always says Sonic. So what are some other memorable games you can think of that you owned, that you played ad nauseum for the Genesis?
Sonic.
Okay, fair enough. That was it? That's all you played?
Yeah, that's it. That's all I played.
Okay.
No, the first game that comes to mind for me will always be Shining Force. Shining Force and Shining Force 2. Two of my favorite RPG games of all time. Great story, great adventure, amazing characters. The turn-based combat system, to me, one of the best. So
created a genre for that one.
Yeah, it created an entire genre that other companies pretty much copied.
Yeah, like if you see a game with the word tactics in it, you're pretty much getting that type of gameplay. Final Fantasy Tactics did it. I think there's Org Battle Tactics or something like that. I think it does the same thing. So, Shining Force, changing the game.
Yep. And not only that, but Shining Force also, what was interesting about that is how it morphed from a labyrinth-style first-person perspective game, because the original game was called Shining in the Darkness.
Dungeon crawler.
And, it was basically a dungeon brawler, and then it became this whole big RPG adventure, which is amazing.
Still, for me, the greatest RPG.
Yeah, and we still have our Shining Force 3s that we need to play.
Yes, cannot wait. Oh, cannot wait.
Yes.
Because I don't have the instructions for mine, so I don't know how to play it, but whatever.
Okay, well, I'll read mine to you.
Just
We can
record
do it
it.
as a No, we can do it as a segment on the show one week.
Page 1.
Page 1.
It's going to be our ASMR video. Anthony reading the instructions. Yes. Oh my god! Yes.
Well, I've been told I have a really good radio voice when I do it. So
yeah, look, I think that's why we both podcast. I think. Yep. All right, I see a post production meeting that may involve some videos in the future.
Yes, I think so. So,
oh my god,
soon, Anthony Reid's Shining Force 3 instruction manual.
Do not copy this game. International law prohibits.
Oh boy.
Okay, cool. So
we're in trouble. Moving on. Okay.
So Shining Force.
Shining Force games are right off the top of my head. How about you? What's the first thing that pops off your head?
Actually, besides Shining Force, would be Castlevania.
Yes.
Castlevania Bloodlines is phenomenal. One of the greatest games on the system. Very happy it's on the Mini. Very happy it was on the Castlevania collection that came out for the current systems. And I think that probably was the game that got me to get a Genesis. It has to be. Because when I saw it, I was like, this, especially after coming off of Castlevania 2. I mean, we had Castlevania 3, which rocks. And then 4.
And Castlevania 2 is fantastic.
Castlevania 2 stinks on ice.
Mm-hmm.
So,
that's just because you can't play it.
So Bloodlines, I can play it. I choose not to play it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference.
Sure.
I choose.
That was by the way the first broken promise on the Retro Gamers podcast was you promising everybody that you would finish that game.
Just like all my past girlfriends, there'll be broken promises galore. So I got news for you, unfortunately. Which is why I play video games now. So after Castlevania Bloodlines, I remember I actually did play. I played more Mortal Kombat on Genesis. And actually, Street Fighter 2, I will admit, was on Super Nintendo. So definitely Mortal Kombat would be next because of the gore factor, because of the blood factor.
Okay.
So cool. I definitely played that. And also a game that I remember I had on Genesis that definitely stands out to me. I have it on the Wii Virtual Console, and I suggested this to the Playable Characters podcast, an awesome podcast. Check them out because they interview video game characters. And I told them they should interview Booger Man.
Oh, wow, yes.
Because coming off the heels of Earthworm Jim, same company, came this game Booger Man. And again, Super Nintendo kind of staying away from that because it's fart jokes, basically. And when I saw this character, when I saw this game Booger Man, I'm like, why do I not already own this game? And... as much as it's very over the top, the gameplay is actually really fun. It's actually a fun game to play. So that's another game that stands out to me because of the crude humor. Okay.
Yeah, and Sega Genesis was all about, well, not all about, but you know what I mean? They allowed the crude factor.
Yep.
Because, they were catering to... They were basically catering to a generation of gamers who were entering adolescence. Let's face it, we were playing the NES and the Master System as kids, right?
Yeah, I mean,
I was like, now we were on our way to adolescence, so they were starting to open it up to, hey, you know what? These kids are growing up, and also like any teenagers who were getting into the NES were becoming adults. So it was the perfect opportunity to take advantage of that, especially because it gave them something Nintendo wasn't offering.
No,
and that's very important.
Because when I got a Genesis, I was probably in my tweens, so I was probably 12, maybe 13. Like I said, it was late into the middle of the run, let's say. So I was probably 12, 13. You were probably 14, 15 when you got it, right? Well, it depends on when you got it. So, but you were a teenager. Yeah. Like you were in your official teens probably when you got it. So you're right.
About right.
So it's hitting that market, and it hit it hard, and I think it did a tremendous job. Any other games that stick out to you?
I'll go into the sports realm really quickly and say NHL 94. It was the arguably the best hockey game ever made, even up till today. We'll argue, but they still have NHL 94 tournaments as we speak now. because of the popularity of that game. That game was outstanding.
Did they include... I could have sworn one of, like, the 2K games included one of the, like NHL 94.
Yes. I'm pretty sure it was. It was like hidden in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, something you unlocked.
The full game. But it had, like, the current rosters at the time, I think.
I believe you are correct. Well, they also, I mean, the other one that introduced me to, like, there's a company or somebody who makes that style of game, basically NHL 94 style of game every year. I've seen current rosters.
I've seen NHL 16, I think NHL 17 for Genesis. Mm-hmm. Yeah, someone, ROMs it out and puts it on a cart every now and again.
Which is awesome.
Actually, with the new season coming up, we may see those again.
Cool.
I will challenge that NHL PA 93 was the greatest hockey game on Genesis.
Okay, and you would be wrong.
But we will let the listeners, you feel free to chime in wherever you listen to the podcast or on YouTube. Just comment below or comment wherever. Another game or a series of games that kind of Genesis tried to go in is these kind of virtual... I guess I'll call it virtual reality. I mean, it wasn't like goggles. It's not like the PlayStation VR, but like these virtual reality hard driving. I don't know if you remember hard driving. Compared to today's standards, the graphics are rough to watch. But back then, these polygons rendered these 3D kind of imaging, if you will, that blew my mind when I got the game. And almost the reality of this I would call it a racing game, for lack of a better term, because like you raced, and then there was like a stunt track, and like when you do the stunt track, like you had to build up speed, like the physics were almost real in it. Virtua Racing is another one that they had on there that tried to get that reality, with polygons, but again in the early '90s, it blew our minds.
Right
until Super Mario 64 came out and showing how to do it right, but. Those type of games, Vector Man, as well, like
Vector Man, I remember.
Which there's a well, you know what? I'll share it to the Facebook page later. A friend of mine showed me a great YouTube video of like the top 10 Genesis games that literally pushed the hardware to its limit. Yeah. And Vector Man 1 and 2 were two games. There was even a game on the Genesis, on a cartridge that used full motion video. I can't remember the name of it. I don't think it was a popular game. Red something, not Red Dawn, Wolverines, but Red something. But again, I'll put up the link.
You got me stumped on that one.
But Genesis pushed that hardware, like with those games, like Hard Drive and Virtua Race and stuff like that.
Well, that must have been the blast processing.
Should be blast processing.
Yeah. But, I think the Genesis did do a lot of, like you said, they did a lot of those things. They pushed those things. One of the things I wanted to bring up, too, because before we move on from Genesis, licensed games, and when I talk about specific licensed games, because a lot of times licensed games would be put on the Genesis and the Super Nintendo, but every once in a while, you would get a game that was a little bit different. Perfect example were Disney games on Genesis and Super Nintendo. Like Aladdin and Lion King to me were two of the best licensed games ever made. And depending on which system you had them for, it was arguable, you preferred, was the Genesis one better? Was the Super Nintendo one better? Honestly, I thought they were all great. But licensed games like that, I remember playing Animaniacs on Sega Genesis.
Yes.
Loved that game. I thought that was a lot of fun. But and licensing became a big deal, especially for Genesis, because they're the ones that started reaching out to actual like celebrities and sports celebrities to try to get their names for games to give them some cachet. So I think I want to say Jack Nicklaus Golf was on Genesis, Evander Holyfield Boxing. I'm trying to remember
Joe Montana Football.
Oh, Joe Montana. That's what I was trying to think of. Joe Montana Football. Like, they all wound up on the Sega Genesis because that was their strategy.
I'll give credit where credit is due. Moonwalker.
Michael Jackson's Moonwalker,
who also is uncredited, but basically did the music for Sonic 3.
Yep.
So
did the music for Sonic 3, and then later had a guest spot on a Sega Dreamcast game called Space Channel 5.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, he's actually in the game.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Okay. So the Genesis, and also let's mention real quick, because Genesis isn't perfect. I think there were maybe some games that were still better on the Super Nintendo. Even though Genesis somehow, I feel like for Disney, like you mentioned, locked it in with Disney, with third parties. I mean, the Mini has a bunch of licensed games on it that you don't see on the Nintendo Minis, like Disney.
Right.
There's 2 Disney games and stuff like that. But I think some games still were better on the Super Nintendo, like the Turtles series, even though the Hyperstone Heist comes out on Genesis, which is good, but I still think the series was better on Super Nintendo personally. Turtles in Time, stuff like that, even the first 3 on the Nintendo. And like I mentioned earlier, though I went Mortal Kombat for Genesis, I went Street Fighter 2 for Super Nintendo. So there were a few games that did better on Super Nintendo, but still, Genesis itself absolutely stood the test of time. And nowadays, I feel like that's proof in the pudding, because now these minis are coming out. And I just am completely wiping the slate of the at-game minis. I do not count them. They no longer exist. But I'm talking like official minis. We're getting 52 games on the Genesis Mini, and I think that alone shows the love of the Genesis.
Yeah. No, and I agree. And I think, well, let's face it, the Sega Genesis, the reason why it was so successful was because of its third-party licenses.
Yes.
So I think it's a perfect way to pay homage to it by including some of them on the Mega Drive Mini, including stuff like you said, like licensed part. Like I think their Mickey Mouse World of Illusion, I believe, is on there.
Yeah, both Castle and World. So
and Castle as well. Yeah. So I mean, just knowing that they went to Disney to get this thing released on their system says a lot for Sega, which is something Nintendo did not do with their minis at all, or at least not for the most part. So I think it is a good testament to them. And what better way to celebrate, Sega Genesis' 30th anniversary than releasing a mini?
There you go. Sounds about right, and sounds right on target.
Yeah.
So, let us hear your thoughts, your comments. What do you love about the Genesis? Were you the Genesis fan, or did you go Super Nintendo? If you owned both, what games did you play more on Genesis? Wherever you listen to us, comment. Let us know about it, and let us know if truly Genesis did what Nintendo didn't.
All right, Larry, it is time for this week's retro birthdays, even though we already celebrated the 30th birthday of the Sega Genesis. I have a few other birthdays I want to talk about. Specifically, there's one really special one from this week, but there were a few last week that I wanted to give a shout-out to. You guys were at the expo, so really didn't get obviously you didn't get an opportunity to, and I wasn't on the show. So I wanted to point those out first.
Fair enough.
So... and you know what? They're pretty monumental. Otherwise, I wouldn't bring them up.
Okay.
So last week, celebrating its 19th birthday, came out in the year 2000.
In the year 2000,
on the PlayStation, the sequel to Chrono Trigger, Chrono Cross, was released, which I thought was really cool. And the reason why I wanted to bring that up is because also released last week in 1995, celebrating its 24th anniversary, is none other than Chrono Trigger. So,
oh, wow. So they came out around the same time of the year.
They came out the same week, 5 years apart.
That's pretty cool. All right.
Which is really cool.
Yeah.
And of course, as we've talked about on the show, and I've talked about it ad nauseum, Chrono Trigger, one of the best RPGs of all time. Very happy to celebrate that 24th birthday. And now going back to 1987, gotta point this one out. This is again from last week. Celebrating its 32nd birthday is the original Metroid for the NES.
Oh my god, 32 years.
32 years.
Okay.
And strangely enough, a week after Metroid came out, which would be this week, also celebrating its 32nd birthday, one of my favorite games of all time, introduced me to a franchise that I will love for the rest of my life, even if they stop making games, but they won't. None other than The Legend of Zelda. 32 years ago this week.
They came out at the same week? well,
they came
a
out
week
a week
apart.
apart.
Oh, wow.
Metroid came out the week before. Mm-hmm.
Those are 2 home runs. Okay.
Exactly. So, it just had to point all of those out. I mean, I guess August would be my month in gaming between Legend of Zelda, Metroid, Chrono Trigger. Like I've got all the good ones here.
I never actually sat down and played Metroid. I got to do that.
I have to say, I sat down and played it so many times and stopped because I couldn't figure out the whole open world side-scrolling thing.
Mm-hmm.
But now that I've completed Hollow Knight on the Switch, I'm going to go back and do Metroid again.
Okay.
So, definitely worth doing it. All right, and those are 4 very, very special shout-outs for this week's Retro Birthday.
All right, so I want to talk a little bit about the Long Island Retro Gaming Expo. We have our special edition up. Like I said, Anthony did a tremendous job in salvaging what needed to be salvaged.
Man, that was a little rough going, man. Don't give me challenges like that.
You know, I got the reverse Midas touch. Everything I touch tends to turn to garbage. So that weekend, just if it could have gone wrong, it basically went wrong. First, you know, I get there and I'm not going to talk ill will about anyone specifically, but I'm just going to say I was doing a live stream, you know, before the doors opened, and there may or may not have been a certain YouTuber there who tended to have a reputation of not being rude, not being, you know, terrible, but just being kind of just, you know, not just like, all right, whatever.
The factor.
Yeah, like, yeah, not rude, not, what's the other thing? I can't think of the other word. But, so, whatever, you know, just kind of gave almost like a, hi, all right, you caught me on camera. You've mentioned it in the past. There was another podcast who I talked to. They've mentioned it as well. So, besides that, because I would have liked to have gotten a quick, hey, this is so-and-so, and it is what it is. I get to the podcast itself. So, getting ready to record, or I thought I was recording what would have been last week's episode of the Retro Gamers, which is why it was such a delay to get the episode out. Because me and Frank from the Better Half, thank you, Frank, and Glenn, who was the camera guy for us, it was going good for 10 minutes, and then my memory card decided to say, oh, nope, I'm full, no more. And then I learned that when that happens, the recorder shuts off. And then it switched to whatever audio it was, from either the cell phone or the camera itself. I don't remember. So, yeah, that was fun.
Bad. It switched to bad audio.
Yeah.
That's what it did.
And then, for anyone who grabbed one of the business cards, thank you very much. But don't even worry about scanning the QR code, because apparently that don't work anymore either. So... And I got a giant QR code sign that I now get to throw away on recycling day.
Why? Just, you should autograph it and put it up on eBay.
Because I know 2 people who are going to bid for it.
That's right.
Me.
You'll get 25 cents.
Me and our super fan Rob. Those are the only 2.
Oh, I was gonna say you and your mom.
Well, maybe. Hopefully, my mother can.
She absolutely would. Hi, Beth.
So that's the annoyance of what happened at the expo. But I got to say, a lot of people came over. We talked to a lot of people. A lot of the podcasts we've talked to. I want to give quick shout outs to again, Playable Characters podcast. They are funny. They're amazing. They were in Forbes magazine. I think they broke the top 30 for iTunes. So good for them.
Nice.
Very funny. And the live episode that they did, they interviewed a crazy taxi passenger.
Oh, nice.
Very funny. Very funny. Also met an awesome podcast, Controller Freak. One girl's quest to become a gamer. So check them out, the Controller Freak podcast. And the 3 things, I only bought 3 things. Frank, I think, bought more stuff than I did.
Really?
You ever hear of you ever hear of Quiz Whiz from the early 80s?
Oh, yeah. He bought one?
Bought one. He bought all of them.
Oh, my God.
We tell the story on the Better Half, but long story short, Frank's cheap. He doesn't buy anything. So he eyed the table across from us, which had some cool vintage stuff anyway. He sees this Quiz Whiz, And he's like, how much? Frank offered him whatever amount of money. And the guy goes, for X number of dollars more, I'll just give you all of them and this cool bag. So Frank ended up with like 20 of them. Like 20 of them. Because there's like 25 or 26 books of this thing. And check out the better half. You'll hear about it. So he did that. Then he bought a pop vinyl. So that was done for him. He bought a Long Duck Dong from 16 Candles.
Nice.
And then the stuff I bought real quick. First of all, finally, I've been looking for this for so long, and I am so sorry, Game On, but I found it at the show, so I finally picked up Rage in the Cage.
Very nice.
WWE Rage in the Cage.
Welcome to the club, except yours is complete, mine's not.
Yes, and this game was awesome. We've talked about it in the past. Yep, it's got got everything. So good stuff on that one. And
awesome.
then I picked up 2 original art. I love original art. So the first one here, Tom Bifulco. I'm butchering that last name. Tom Bifulco illustration. You can check him out. Tom Bifulco, BIFULCO.com. He does some awesome artwork, and he started to do these like on actual canvas. So I bought this little guy. You may recognize him.
Oh wow, that's really nice. That is a Scrooge McDuck.
That is on
Very
gold.
Cool. Let me rephrase that. It's a Scrooge McDuck from the DuckTales game.
Yes, it is. I think the jacket's a different color, but I think the red popped better than the blue.
Yeah, but that's really cool. Very nice.
So got that, and then this I love. There was Paisley Manga. Paisley Manga. You can check her out at paisleymanga.com. MANGA. So she did commissions, but it looked like she did a lot of like anime and like Pokemon. So I'm like, can you do a different character? She's like, who do you have in mind? So I decided to go with my favorite cartoon character of all time, my very first word, and the game that was supposed to be Donkey Kong, well, that became Donkey Kong, was originally Popeye. This
wow,
came out,
she did a great job.
Bro, I'm telling you, this was amazing. I ordered it on Saturday. I picked it up Sunday. Sunday morning, she just had it sketched. There was no color. I would have taken that. It was so good. Pure sketch. And then when I saw the color, blew my mind. This is awesome.
Nicely done. Very nicely done.
That, and then we had a lot of other cool shout-outs, and then one final shout-out I want to give is a game. If you're into Final Fantasy VI and Chrono Trigger, you can go to sixengine.com, SIXengine.com. Gentleman there is basically making a game free to play, and it's just kind of like an homage to those two games.
Nice.
So definitely check that out. His name is William Cage, Kage. And you can check him out as patreon.com/William Cage. So
very cool.
So yeah, so the show is bigger than years prior. I mentioned it on the special. Basically, the merchants were saying they made more money on Saturday than the entire weekend last year.
Wow.
So this thing's getting legs. And
awesome.
then the final thing I want to mention, because I do have 2 interviews that we're going to play here in a moment for the. Well, I guess we could put it on the video.
No, for both. It'll be on video and audio.
So, at night, Saturday, when the floor closed at 7, from 7 to 10, they had this thing called Retro and Chill. They rolled out a bar. It was a cash bar. All the games were free to play. The pinball machines were free to play. And then they had this band. If you haven't heard this band before, check them out. They're called Bit Brigade. They're from Atlanta, Georgia. Check them out online. What they do, though, is they will supply the music to a game being played live on stage.
Oh, wow.
And they did Mega Man 3. And, I mean, the guy who plays the game is a speedrunner, clearly. But, the music rocked. It's actually on our Facebook page, The Retro Gamers, and I'll look to put it up on our YouTube page as well.
Cool.
It was phenomenal. Definitely get their music if you can. They have a Legend of Zelda album that is...
Ooh.
Oh, I listened to it. I have it on Apple Music. Fantastic. So check out Bit Brigade. Good guys, good stuff. And basically, that was it with the show. It was good stuff. You know what? It got so big, Ant, I actually kind of wish you were there, and maybe next year.
Maybe next year I will be there.
So we'll talk. Right now, though, we're going to play 2 interviews that I did. One is with our friend, Thomas Retro Gamer. You can check him out on YouTube and Facebook. Good friend of mine, good friend of the show now. So he stopped by, so we talked a little bit. And then I had another short interview with Tom Bilfuco, who will pronounce his name correctly. On the interview, and then we will get back. So here is the interviews with Thomas Retro Gamer and Tom Bifulco. All right, here at the Long Island Retro Gaming Expo, and one of my favorite streamers has just arrived here. Thomas Retro Gamer, no relation to us. Thomas, how you doing?
I am doing awesome.
Good. I'm glad you came out here. What have you seen so far that's cool at the Long Island Retro Expo?
Well, almost a lot of new games. Basically, I would say a lot of the arcades, especially.
Oh, did you hit the arcades?
I just went to the arcades, believe it or not, and they had, which I didn't realize from the TV show, called the old TV show of the Monsters. The old TV show,
yes.
And they had almost an authentic, pinball. Like I guess when I saw that there was a lot of awesome, almost authentic, pinball machines. I tried almost an Elvis one, which is ordinary. Elvis,
yes.
So, other than that, I've been seeing a lot of, almost other people. I got to meet, basically, I would say Pat the NES Punk.
Yes, Pat's here. Pat the NES Punk. Yep.
So and I actually, I gave him my info, if he wants to check me out, over on Facebook, I would say YouTube.
Okay.
And he said he'll definitely check me out.
Awesome.
So
awesome. Did you pick up his book? You already have his book? Did you pick up his book?
Oh, his book? No, but I did pick up one of his wristbands.
That's cool.
Which is actually pretty,
Yep.
I would say authentic. It is authentic.
That's pretty cool.
But
and you got a pretty cool picture with him, I saw.
Yeah. So and I met other. I was one other good friends. I think his name is called the Retro Runner over on Facebook. If anybody wants to check him out.
Yeah, absolutely. We are all about the love and the shares. So have you seen anything interesting as far as games?
Well, there's especially they had a TV. They were showing off a lot of the old-fashioned the commercials, like all the
really?
old-fashioned. I think it was down there.
I've seen that before. Yes.
Where they show all the old-fashioned, the old, the Game G commercials, and I just saw which eventually, they should bring that back.
The Game Genie?
No, all the old-fashioned commercials.
Yeah.
They should really bring those back.
We've done a couple episodes with commercials, about commercials.
Yeah.
Some of them are wacky.
Oh, my God, man.
Anything as far as for sale that you've seen?
It's a lot of, what the
there
old-fashioned... There is a lot. I've seen a lot of the old-fashioned, there's an ordinary, actually, of Super Mario Brothers, I think on... I can't think of actually what game, huh?
The Japanese Famicom?
That's it, Japanese Famicom, which ordinary, I see it always advertised on a lot of big YouTubers. It's very popular with the Japanese ones.
It's fun to own, don't get me wrong. It's cool. My buddy, the guy Anthony, I do a podcast with.
Yeah.
He has a Famicom and he has the disc drive.
Oh, wow. Amazing.
Well, he bought it all in Japan. So.
Eventually, yeah.
But that's cool.
And then I just got back to, which ordinary, I didn't realize also they have, I know it could be a really ordinary kind of game, but the game called Rock Band, which I was just over by playing a lot of the Rock Band, and this person there, has it all set up for I think he has all the Rock Band 2 songs all mixed in. And, I got my butt kicked in, not knowing the old controllers.
Yeah,
but
takes a while to get used to it, right?
But
forget about it.
Yeah. Other than that, there's been a lot of ordinary, T-shirts. They have one that's a Castlevania T-shirt, which I want to.
Logo.
It's called, I would say, Retro Mansion. No, not Retro Mansion. Retro Mania.
Yep.
So, I was affecting of, I would say, WrestleMania, but but
all right.
That's I was thinking also by myself, but I don't know. I have to, see if I have the money to even get that.
You can. Someone can get lost real quick as far as the funds around here.
There's a lot of arcades, especially, Street Fighter 2. I got my hands on the affected, one.
Okay.
And the turbo.
Very good.
Other than
That's
that,
awesome.
there's everything. I mean.
Yeah. Upstairs is a really cool museum, if you will.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
And I was trying to play what's going on. Retro Gamers Podcast every Tuesday. Check us out wherever you listen to podcasts. All right, that's my live commercial.
Oh, so. There you go. There you go.
But I haven't had a chance to hit Pinball Row. It's a madhouse in there. But that's
I know, it's
where
so tight.
That's where the Ms. Pac-Man is.
Oh, I think I saw that.
And they have a lot. If you keep going in to the pinball area, they have a lot of the Japanese arcade machines. Because that's what those arcades look like in Japan.
I got to go back in there and look. There's a lot of ones.
They have those weird-looking ones in the back, but you got to imagine, 5 of them linked together.
Oh, my God.
And, 10 rows of those. That's what it looks like in a Japanese arcade.
Yeah. I mean, there is a lot. I mean,
it's nuts.
There's, that's why I say, they should really bring back a lot of the old-fashioned arcades. Especially, there's one game I can't imagine really playing is, I'm just going to say is... it's a Tim Burton Batman the Arcade, which I keep rambling about on my
I've seen
on my
you
page.
play it, yeah.
I keep rambling about it because it's probably the most, almost iconic based on the movie.
What's an interesting version of Batman, the video game based on the movie.
Yeah.
For the PC Engine, the Japanese TurboGrafx 16. I played it once.
I saw something on that, yeah.
It's nothing like it's not a side-scroller. It's like this weird puzzler almost.
That?
Very
odd.
Yeah. Very odd, but it's cool. If you can ever find it, it's good luck finding it.
Yeah.
But
if somebody really has it, because it might be worth probably a lot of money.
Around here, forget about it.
Even going up and stay on the third floor, and then eventually I seen they have a lot of the upstairs on the on the PC on the LAN thing, which I never see that here.
They have a LAN party on the third floor.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have that. They have Halo. They have the Halo going on over there.
The far end. Yeah.
And
so,
what was the other thing I wanted to mention? Oh, next to Pat the NES Punk, I don't know if you saw him. It is way out of all of our budgets.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of games that are graded, actually graded video game, like a comic book.
Oh yeah.
But now they're grading video games.
Yeah.
So, and now we're getting
it out.
Now we're getting the video. Thomas Retro Gamer live with the Retro Gamers. Thomas, let them know where they can find you.
Over on Facebook at Thomas Retro Gamer page. Over on Facebook, YouTube. I would say over at TBZ 2006. Twitch at TBZ29 WWF. Mostly everything. I would say Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch.
Awesome. And then
eventually, and my logo.
There you go. And then one final question. Who do you got, Kofi Kingston or Randy Orton for the WWE title?
Ooh, good one. Well, it is an old rivalry that they're bringing back, but I hate to say this, but it's going to be a wrong thing, but I would have to go with the Viper.
Really? Randy Orton, new champion. You heard it right here.
Because they would go back to the old school.
Because it is SummerSlam weekend. All right, Thomas, thank you very much for stopping by. Stopping on the podcast.
Yeah.
And we will be back.
Uh-huh.
All right, so here at Cradle of Aviation for the Long Island Retro Gaming Expo, and I'm here with an artist and I'm not just saying this because he's standing in front of me. I bought a couple pieces from him. I just bought an awesome Scrooge McDuck that he did on canvas. Tom Bifolco?
Yeah, that's correct, Bifolco. Yep.
And where can they find you on social media? Where can they get your stuff?
You can find me, Tom Bifolco, at Instagram. I'm going to be opening up an Etsy shop pretty soon.
All right. That's cool.
That's going to be just go Etsy/shop/Tom Bifolco.
I'm going to put it up on the thing. Don't worry about it.
Put all that information up. I also got my website, tombifolco.com. I got some more of my more general illustration stuff on there as well. But I got some of my game-related stuff on there, too.
And, your go-to, because I know this is a bit of an audio, and I'm going to put some photos up of your stuff, and I'm going to share some of your stuff as well. The games, you capture these old games, these vintage video games. What's probably your favorite ones to paint? Because basically these are paintings. That's what they are. Drawings.
Yeah, I take a lot of inspiration from box art, from manual artwork and stuff like that, because a lot of it is just not even an exact replication. It's more of an interpretation, and I kind of try to lean towards that in my work, whilst at the same time kind of keeping it close to what it's supposed to be.
Okay.
As far as like what I tend to lean towards, like if there's like a certain subject matter, it's really just how I feel, like what I think is interesting, and also what's different.
Yes.
Like I want to just give you the same thing everybody like gives you, like that you see at other tables. Like if there's like a weird thing from like a certain character from like a piece of manual artwork or an arcade cabinet or an Atari box, which is totally abstract.
Oh yeah.
I want to take an element from that and kind of bring it into what I do, just to differentiate it. And even if it's obscure, you know, it might not mean a lot to the majority of people, but it's always going to stand out to like a few people where it really like hits a bell like that. You know.
I mean, I'm looking at it right now. You got Haunted House for Atari. You've done Kaboom, and you got your new stuff. You got Gooigi, which we'll look forward to.
Oh my! I'm obsessed with Gooigi. I need Gooigi in my life. And
Don't we all?
I thought I had Halloween plans, but well, those plans just changed.
And even I'm looking at it here. I may have to pick something else up before I leave. You got the Pac-Man, but the cartoon, like the cartoon Pac-Man.
Oh my God! Yeah, that again, like kind of like what I was saying. You want to do something different, but at the same time in a recognizable state. And I'm like, how do you do Pac-Man? How do you do Pac-Man differently? You know, you could do just like the 8-bit or arcade style. You could do the more, mainstay kind of artwork. Or you can go to Hanna-Barbera, that weird, lame cartoon, and really kind of just start just pulling from the well that people don't think that they're going to see. Like that. And I remember when I first saw that, it was a Christmas special. I was like, oh, a Pac-Man cartoon? And I was like, oh my God, this is terrible. Even as a kid, I thought it was terrible.
I watched it religiously, so... all right, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I want some people to buy stuff from you. So check out Tom again. I'm going to put some stuff on the page. Tom, thank you very much for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much, Larry. Thanks for stopping by.
All right, Larry, it is time for another, and it's been a long time since we've done one of these, a retro record.
Ooh, okay.
Retro record. We haven't done one in a while.
Oh.
And I was trying to find something interesting and cool and something related to both of us in terms of our gaming habits. And I found the retro record for the longest Mario Kart marathon.
Okay. As things get destroyed on the side. I don't think you
cat
can
is
see
destroying my home.
You can't
because
really.
She is hungry.
You can't really see it the way it's going to be cut off, but
true.
She's doing some damage.
My cat is behind me doing some damage. Anyway, the longest Mario Kart marathon lasted 35 hours and 45 minutes.
Good Lord.
It was achieved in Australia.
Oh, wow. I wouldn't have guessed.
Yeah, Victoria, Australia, on July 4th and 5th, 2014. And
Okay.
Harry Twyford, Josh Alexander, Matt Smith, and James Hickman played Mario Kart. They were raising money for a local charity in town called Peter's Project.
Cool.
The money raised for the event went towards the goal of Peter's Project, which was creating an integrated cancer center in the town that they lived in.
Nice.
Which was really cool. But again, 4 guys, 35 hours. Can you imagine playing Mario Kart for 35 hours? That's a lot of battles.
After 13 minutes, I want to throw the controller against the wall if I'm in a battle.
Yeah, you know what? Maybe we should set up a Mario Kart marathon with our friends, and we'll see how long it lasts.
Oh God, we'll rage quit in minutes.
That's what I mean. We may get a retro record for the shortest marathon.
Press start, FU, game over.
Exactly. Disconnect. We're done. All right. And I've got 2 cats looking at me.
Oh boy!
All right, so the longest Mario Kart marathon. Congratulations to those guys who have now held it for over 5 years in Australia, and that is this week's retro record.
Good day. All right, so we're going to get ready to wrap this one up. We're going to get into the news in a moment, but just real quick before I forget, I do want to just very quickly, again, thank who helped out last week during the Retro Expo, or 2 weeks now, I don't know how long it was. Frank from the Better Half podcast, Eric Hale, who had some really cool, interesting, like oddball systems that he had, some of these homemade systems and stuff. There was a karaoke Dreamcast adapter.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I never even knew this existed. So he's got a lot of cool stuff. I'd love to check out his collection, his full collection one day. Again, Playable Character Podcast, where we played Wed, Bed, Dead with me and Frank, and funny Frank trying to figure out who the characters were. And of course, Glenn Notaro, who helped out big time for us as cameraman. And unfortunately, we had to cut his portion. Just the audio did not work out well for that. And there was a wonderful cosplayer. Ma'am, I apologize. Frank desperately wanted to interview a cosplayer. We did, but again, just the audio didn't work out. So we didn't just interview you and tape you for nothing. We were going to put you on, but unfortunately, we apologize. So,
okay.
With that, let's get into some retro news.
All right, let's jump into some retro news. And I know the first one is going to appeal to you right away, Larry, and we've talked about this one already, because you said earlier we were talking about Joy-Con controllers.
Yes.
And I know you got a bit of news related to that.
Yes.
But at Best Buy, you can pre-order neon green Joy-Con controllers for your Nintendo Switch.
These are cool. I saw them. I love the color. I'm assuming in relation to Luigi's Mansion 3?
That would make sense, yes.
Right? Now, here's the thing. If you have, which is cool, but if you have, they're the same green, if you have the Splatoon special, the Splatoon 2, gosh, colored Joy-Cons, it's that same green. So, but now you get as a left and a right, where if you bought the American and then the Japanese versions, you would have gotten left and right anyway. But still, very cool, a bright neon green. So definitely check that out. Like you said, what, Best Buy exclusive?
Yes, Best Buy exclusive.
And
then speaking of Joy-Cons, Larry, I believe there's something you wanted to report.
So I believe we've talked about it before, the issue of the Joy-Con drift, where the Joy-Cons were just drifting away as they were. And supposedly Nintendo is going to fix them for free. Well, apparently a friend of mine at work was telling me, actually just today, that I don't have all the specifics, forgive me, but when I'm going to talk to him this week, he basically set up a ticket to retest 4 Joy-Cons. He's returning them. As far as I know, it's not guaranteed that all 4 of these Joy-Cons have an issue, but I guess he's going to return all 4 of them. They're going to fix it free of charge. Supposedly, there's no limit to the number of Joy-Cons you can return on one ticket. Like, I have 5 pairs, so I have 10 Joy-Cons.
Right.
I wonder, when I get more information, I'll bring it up next week. But it looks like Nintendo's going through with this.
All right, hey, you know what? And good on them. There were so many people that had issues with their controllers. I remember, mine was I only had my Switch for 3 weeks when I had that problem. And back then, they made you send the entire Switch over, not just the Joy-Con.
That's weird.
Which was absurd.
I guess now it's just kind of like a soldering issue. I don't know.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know if you have it in your news, Ant, but do you have anything about recent Nintendo Switch owners and their supposed upgrade?
But I did. Yeah, no. I did see the news that because they're coming out with a new version of the Switch,
not the Lite, not Nintendo Switch,
not the Lite, the original Nintendo Switch. There's a new version coming out.
It's like a better battery.
It has a better battery. That's the biggest thing. But if you bought a Nintendo Switch recently, you're actually able to bring it back to switch it for the new version of the Switch.
Get it? Switch.
And on top of that, GameStop is currently offering $225 if you want to trade in your Switch. And if you choose, and basically, if you want to trade in your Switch, your current one. Oh. So if you can't switch it, if you can't trade yours in for the new Switch for free, you can trade in at GameStop for $225, and then for another $75, you can get the new Switch.
That's not bad.
And that's and that's the longer battery.
Yeah.
With the longer battery.
I wonder if I have to include Joy-Cons. I'm going to look into that one.
Yeah, you're going to do it. Moving on.
Yeah, I don't know if I will. But all right. What else we got?
No, you will. I know you. All right. So, again, these aren't really retro news that we're talking about at the moment, but still. Super Mario Maker 2, which has the traditional Mario, the traditional side-scrolling Mario boards. So part of the appeal of that game is that you can create your own Mario courses, post them online, and download them, or you can just download Mario courses. Yep. There are now, as of today, more than 5 million courses you can download for Super Mario Maker 2.
Wow.
That's insane.
That is crazy.
And I've also seen some of those boards. I don't want to download them.
What about that really famous one, which I actually downloaded with all the
fire?
Yep. Oh, good Lord.
Did you get through it?
Absolutely. No, I don't even think the screen moved.
Wow.
It's terrible.
So, yes. So, if you invested in Super Mario Maker 2, that game will definitely... You can play that game pretty much for the rest of your life. 5 million courses.
There's an endless mode in it, so you just course after course after course.
Well, there you have it.
Yep.
Again, more Nintendo news. We have the 2 new games popped up on the Switch Online.
Oh, did that happen
for
already?
the month of August? Yeah. We got Kung Fu Heroes and Vice Project Doom.
Nice. I've always wanted to play. I never played Vice Project Doom. I've heard good things about it. Now I get a chance to play it. This is pretty cool.
Yep. And
I was going to say, they're kind of... Like, a lot of the games lately were either Nintendo or, like those very close to the system type games, like other Nintendo game. I feel like these two are kind of off, like, are oddball type games, which I like. I like that idea.
Yeah,
almost like Sega
they're
Connection.
not the standard ones that you remember. You know what I mean? They were they kind of dipped into the library a little deeper this time around, which was really cool. Then also coming out for the Switch, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One, it's a new retro style wrestling game that we both heard about. And I thought this was really cool. It's called Retromania Wrestling, and the reason why this is so appealing to both of us, not just because we're wrestling fans that we play wrestling in, but because this game plays like one of the only games they've never ever released anywhere on a home platform. WrestleFest, the arcade game, which was by far and away one of my favorite arcades of all time.
Game was fantastic. That and Superstars, absolutely fantastic. This is very an homage again. We use that a lot today, but to that. But they're getting actual wrestlers to sign up for this.
Yes, it's not just going to be made-up wrestlers. They actually did get wrestlers who are not working for any major company right now, and these are wrestlers that from way back that you may know, such as the Road Warriors or Legion of Doom, Tommy Dreamer, Blue Meanie, Big Stevie Cool, Hollywood Nova. Some new guys like Cole Komet is not a new guy, but Zack Sabre Jr., Austin Idol. There are some names in there. There are known names in there in the wrestling world. So if you're a wrestling fan and you like that retro style game, look up Retromania Wrestling, definitely for you.
And not only that, but Tommy Dreamer and House of Hardcore, his promotion is going to be so the whole promotion, well, not all the guys, but the promotion itself is going to be in there as well. So that's I'm looking forward to that. I think that comes out next year. I'm psyched.
Yes, me too. And the last bit of news I wanted to share, and this was just a great story. Just a game store in Seattle.
I saw this.
I know you. Yes, you saw this. Somebody came in and decided to trade in a bunch of games at a game store in Seattle. Found a box in his attic. He's like, "What the hell? I'm trading these in." And the store owner, who's looking through the box, finds a copy of the Nintendo World Championship NES game. Now, for those of you who do not know what this game is, it's considered it's like the holy grail of NES games, because this was a cartridge that was only given out to winners of the Nintendo World Championship tournament that traveled around in 1990. It's a very special cartridge that contains 3 segments of 3 different games that you played in the tournament, which were Super Mario Brothers, Rad Racer, and Tetris. So anyway, this game can go for easily 5 figures.
Easily.
5 figures is pretty much a given for it. They didn't say exactly what they paid for it, but as soon as they did pay for it, now the agreement was from the article that I read was that he did get paid well for it.
Okay.
So it wasn't like it wasn't like, here's $100, go on your merry way.
Well, it's not on high demand. It goes for about $13,000. I got to store it. I'll give you $25.
Right. So apparently the person was paid well for it, and then it was sold within 24 hours to an anonymous collector.
I'm sure.
So but that's just kind of an awesome story of a game like that just popping up out of nowhere.
No, that's totally cool. And that kind of reminds me as well, one final thing from Long Island Retro. There was a company there. I forgot who it was. It wasn't Heritage Auction. And unfortunately, I don't have their card in front of me. But they had graded games, sealed graded games. And I was looking at them. I'm like, just looking at them, like, all right, pretty cool. And they had a sealed WrestleMania, the arcade game, for the PlayStation in the original long box, which I didn't even know it came out.
Yeah, nice.
So I'm looking at it. I'm just inquiring. I'm like, how much for WrestleMania? And the guy goes, well, we have it on sale today, so it's only $990-something, down from like $1,800. I'm like, okay, have a good day.
Bye. Yep.
But he had some nice stuff.
Yep.
And he's looking.
I was going to say the interesting thing about this, and I read an article about this last week as well, is that especially since coming from San Diego Comic-Con, I went to I go to all these comic book conventions. Yeah. But apparently now collectors are turning towards video games. Video game collecting is becoming the new trend, and of course, along with that will come game grading, which is what comic books have been doing for years now. Now, all of a sudden, getting a game graded like double, triple, quadruples the value easily. In some cases, 10 or 20 times more, depending on what the grade is. So this is something that we're going to be seeing a lot of moving forward. And like you said, like prices that are going to be absurd. Like, I showed you games that were going for like $5,000, $6,000, $7,000. At heritage auctions, or at least that was the price tag on them. Yeah. So that's just something that we're going to be seeing. It makes me wish I kept every single game complete when I was growing up. But it is what it is.
The one final thing I saw at that booth, which wasn't graded, but I don't know why I didn't pull the trigger on it. I think it was like $250. A signed copy of Wayne Gretzky's Hockey by Wayne Gretzky.
Nice.
So I was like,
you should have.
Yeah, I know, but
it was. But I mean, come on, that's a lot of money to drop.
No, it is, but it next time. So, all right, cool.
Yep, that's all the news I got.
That's it. All right, sweet. So we're going to pull this one into port. It's we got to the end of the level. It's game over. It's time to unplug the system and whatever else and the cat's about to attack you.
The cat's about to jump on me. Come on. You want to say hello and goodbye?
Nope. He's going to shut
the tail.
She's going to shut the podcast down.
Yeah, she's basically going to shut the podcast down. Larry, I will not be here for the next 2 weeks. I will be on assignment in China.
Ooh, so yeah. Won't hear from you for a while. Okay.
No, so you are responsible for episodes 149 and 150.
150. Oh, man.
I will unfortunately be missing 150.
Boo. All right, we may have to stretch 150 2 weeks. We'll see.
I was just going to say I may have to pull some magic and figure out a way to show up for that one.
Not where you're going, but we'll figure something out.
But I will say this: I definitely will not be here next week.
Okay. Well, then next week I will have some sort of special guest. I'll figure it out as I do, and then I'll have to figure out the video portion, which I'm not good with. But we'll figure it out. We'll do something.
Yes, we will.
Safe travels then, especially.
Thank you, sir.
Enjoy your trip, and so I think we'll call it. All right.
What do you want to call it?
Let's call it an episode. Follow us wherever you listen to this podcast. Doesn't matter where. Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, Podcoin, Stitcher. Wherever you listen, hit subscribe, hit like. Give us a positive review on whatever platform you use. If you can, do it on Apple. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, where you're watching us now most likely, Retro Gamers Podcast. And hit them with the website and the email.
www.theretrogamers.com, or you can email us at email@theretrogamers.com.
Email us. We want to get email, for crying out loud. We have it. We want to use it. So, all right. Excellent. And feed those cats. Enjoy your trip.
Thank you. And you enjoy your week. Try and play some of the games you actually purchased.
Well, I can't yet. Rage in the Cage. I got to wait.
Yeah,
a little while longer. Oh, well.
Play your other games.
I'll figure something out.
You have plenty.
And with that, folks, we will catch you right here next week on the Retro Gamers Podcast.